How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Dragon's Den. My name is Dusty, and today we're going to talk about my three most anticipated commanders coming out of Modern Horizons 3. I'm pretty sure all the cards are officially spoiled for Modern Horizons 3. It comes out here shortly, and it has a ton of good value for commander in it, including several new legendary creatures that I think are going to be absolutely busted in this format. So, we're going to just look at my favorite three, the three I'm most excited to get to build and everything else. And we're going to start that off with the Necro Bloom. The Necro Bloom is a 4-drop Abzan commander. 1 green, 1 black, 1 white, and 1 generic. For a legendary creature plant, it is a 2/7. Yeah, you heard that. 2/7. Got a ton of toughness. It has landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/1 green plant creature token. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token instead. Land cards in your graveyard have Dredge 2. Land cards having Dredge 2 is insanely busted, because it is going to be so easy to get land cards in your graveyard between self-mill effects, fetch lands, everything else. It's going to be so easy to get land cards into your graveyard, and then you're just milling yourself even more. And then being in Abzan, you're going to have the ability to reanimate everything you put in your graveyard. You can run cards like Revel Arc, Karmic Guide, Sun Titan. You can run mass recursion spells like Rise of the Dark Realms, things of that nature. You could maybe run Carador and Marin, things that will allow you to get creature cards back out of your graveyard. And there's a couple of different ways you can build this deck. How I would personally do it is a sort of a mix between Landfall and Aristocrats. So you'll want to run your Landfall package, and that's going to be cards like Azusa, Oracle of Moldiah, Exploration, Wayward Swordtooth, Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Cards that let you play additional lands on each of your turns. So that will allow you to really, really take advantage of the landfall effect on this card. And it's going to allow you to make just a bunch of tokens. And then you run your Aristocrat style cards. So like Blood Artist, Cruel Celebrant, Zulaport Cutthroat, whatnot. That way you can take those cards, or those tokens that you're making from ramping with all of your landfall stuff, and then you sacrifice the tokens for value to something like Viscera Seer to scry, Phyrexian Altar to be able to make an extra mana. The new card that's coming in the set, Warren Soul Trader, which I think is absolutely going to be busted, where you'll sacrifice something and make a treasure token. You want to have good sacrifice outlets. You sacrifice the tokens you make for value, and then you're also ramping like crazy. So then you're just going to make a bunch of tokens, sacrifice for value, play big spells. And then you can also put some pretty big creature cards in the deck and sort of just mill them into your graveyard, and then play the mass recursion or find a way to cheat them back into play and whatnot. And I feel like the Necro Bloom is basically just going to be a value engine that just always keeps on turning no matter what happens. Now, the other way you can build this, and it's a perfectly valid way to build it, is do like a landfall zombies type deal. So once you have 7 different land names on the battlefield, your landfall makes zombies instead of plants. So you can keep your landfall package in to where you're ramping like crazy, and then you start making zombies, and then you can start playing, zombie lords like Death Baron, Lord of the Accursed, things like that, and pump up all your zombie tokens. And then also take all these zombie tokens you're making, and you can play something like Triumph of the Hordes or Overwhelming Stampede, and you just build an army of zombies like a crazy value engine and just run people over that way, which is a perfectly valid way to build the deck. But I do think the more combo-y, aristocrat style landfall deck is going to be the more fun way to build this guy. Either way is great. Either way, this commander is extremely strong, and I highly encourage you, if you like that style of play, build this commander. The next commander that I would be very excited to build is 6. 6 is so hard for me to sit here and just say 6 because it's such a short creature name. It's very funny. But it's a 3-drop mono green legendary creature, 1 green, 2 generic. For a legendary creature treefolk, it's a 2/4. It has reach. Whenever 6 attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put a land from among them into your hand. As long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. So, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. 6 would be a phenomenal card in the 99 of the Necro Bloom. It would, and there's just no doubt about that. It mills you, which helps you in the Necro Bloom. It puts lands in your graveyard by getting them out of your hand, and you can dredge them back every single turn, milling you more. So you can so why 6 would be super good in the Necro Bloom is you would use the dredge ability to mill yourself twice in the Necro Bloom, put a land back into your hand, then you can discard it to play something out of your graveyard. So it's really good, but I also think it's just really good on its own as a commander. So I would run a high number of lands in this deck, anywhere between 40 and 45, and I would build it just really, really simply. Put in some self-mill effects. First cards that come to my mind, like 6 does it on his own. There's Lumra, the new legendary creature coming out in Bloomburrow later this year. Mulch, things like that would be anything that puts cards into your graveyard. It would be extremely helpful with 6. And you want to have lands in your hand. You want to kind of make sure you always got lands in your hand. So you fill your graveyard with your big creatures, which is exactly how I do it. I just put big creatures in the graveyard and then ramp, and then basically have my graveyard be an extension of my hand and just play big creatures out of my graveyard. And I think that's the best way to build this. And it's very, very simple. 6, what 6 does is very strong, but it's not very complex. It's very, very straightforward how it works. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's just kind of hard to say. Like, he's very, very good in the 99 of several decks, but I think he will be fun on his own as well. And I think it's a easy enough commander that I think a beginner could probably build, because it's milling itself. The green self-mill cards are extremely cheap and things like that. And so it'll be a good entry-level deck, I think, for somebody that's just getting into the format, that could be strong and also a budget build. So 6 is really cool, but you would kind of want to make sure that you have ways to play lands out of your graveyard. So think like Crucible of Worlds, Ramunap Excavator, Ancient Green Warden, anything that says you can play lands out of your graveyard. So now you're discarding a land to play something out of your graveyard, and then playing the land out of your graveyard so that you don't lose out on a land drop to be able to play the cards in your graveyard. Very straightforward, very easy strategy. I think it'd be very fun and very strong. The last card that I want to talk about that I think would be an amazing commander coming out of this new set, Ulamog the Defiler. It is a 10-drop, all 10 colorless, completely colorless creature, legendary creature, Eldrazi, 7/7. When you cast this spell, target opponent exiles half their library rounded up. Ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to a number of I got a little mixed up there. Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. Ulamog has Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So, obviously this card is also a big include in several decks. Think Voral the Hullclade, anything that cares about +1/+1 counters, like Vorinclex, the Monstrous Raider, or just even Eldrazi decks as it is, any sort of Eldrazi tribal deck, obviously you want to have this, or just big creature decks, you know. But I think he's worth playing on his own. So colorless is getting a ton of support in Modern Horizons 3. Eldrazi's in general are getting a ton of support in Modern Horizons 3. And colorless is stronger than I think a lot of people would like to give it credit for, although it's starting to come around. So you can run extremely efficient mana ramp in colorless. And most people, when they think mana ramp, they think green, but mana rocks, artifacts are honestly just as efficient, if not more efficient than green at actually ramping up crazy number of mana. And then colorless also has several cost reducers now. So you're going to be able to, even though this guy is a 10 drop, you're going to be able to get him out decently fast. And when he hits the board, the game is going to change. And even if somebody knows he's coming and they hold up a counter spell or removal, it comes at a price. So when Ulamog the Defiler, whenever you cast him, it is a cast trigger. You exile half of somebody's library. So instantly you're taking half of somebody's cards just directly out of the game before he even hits the field. So if somebody wants to counter it, okay, I'm exiling your library. It's going to cost them to be able to do it. Then if they actually allow him to hit the table and they left a removal up for him, single target removal of any kind, they have to sacrifice 2 of their permanents just to get rid of him. That is crazy. Then, so you have options, right? I'd say there's a couple of good things you could do with his cast trigger. Say there's a combo player in your pod. Hey, combo player, exile half your library. There's a very decent chance you're going to hit their pieces of their combo, and you'll just leave them in a position where they can't win, and you've effectively took out a player from the game just by casting a singular spell. Or maybe you don't have combo players, or maybe you do, and there's just some guy he's also playing an Eldrazi deck, or something like that, or a big green stompy deck. Hey, I'm going to exile half of your library. Oh, you have a 7-drop creature. Well, my Ulamog is going to enter with 7+1/+1 counters on it. And now every time I attack, whoever I'm attacking is sacrificing 7 of their permanents before they even have a chance to block. And then if they want to try to take care of them, they have to sacrifice 2 more permanents. This thing having Ward sacrifice 2 permanents is just, this guy is insane. I don't know how he got through testing. Honestly, looking back at the Eldrazi Titans have always been strong. And I think this is definitely either the strongest, or at least in the top 3 strongest Eldrazi's ever printed. This guy is absolutely insane, and he is definitely the best out of the 3 that are coming in Modern Horizons 3. I'm talking about the 3 main Eldrazi Titans. I know there's a lot of Eldrazi coming in Modern Horizons 3, and I still think this guy is head and shoulders the best Eldrazi being printed in Modern Horizons 3. His power level is off the charts. And the thing is, running this guy, you can run every Eldrazi Titan that's been printed. Except obviously not the ones that have been banned. But you can run the new Emrakul and the other Emrakul. You can run the Kozilek cards. You can run the other Ulamogs. You can run, really whenever you build colorless, you build for all colorless. So then you can put in Blightsteel Colossus and Ugin and things like that. Colorless is just extremely strong. And I know there's some new 5-color Eldrazi commander, and that's really, really cool. But honestly, I think just sticking with pure colorless and not having to worry about any sort of color fixing or anything like that, and then just ramping into arguably the strongest Eldrazi in the game, is 100% the best way to do it. So, with that being said, guys, these are 3 legendary creatures I'm extremely excited for to build commander decks around, or to put them in commander decks where they'll shine just as bright as they would on their own. They're very, very strong, and I'm very excited for these. Modern Horizons 3, the spoilers, everything else, it's going to be an insane set for Commander. I know it's meant to be a modern targeted set, but so many of the cards in it are just extremely good for our format, and I couldn't be more excited. So, with that being said, let me know, what Commander are you looking forward to playing the most coming out of Modern Horizons 3? So, with that being said, I hope you all had a wonderful time. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.